And we're live. Good evening, folks, and welcome to Tuesday's night edition of Here's the Deal. I'm Shiloh, and I got my trusty partner, Mr. Marvin. How are you, Marvin?
I'm doing pretty okay. Where'd our intro go? There's like no warning, just hey, we're live.
Yeah, I kind of did it backwards. I hit the live button first and before the countdown, so it's all on me. So, at any rate, man, we have a good show tonight. We've got Miss Kat Perkins on this evening. And
Yeah, it would be
so,
great to hear from her.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with what's going on in Medora, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and her foundation. And so, with that, we'll bring her on.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I think we're gonna
Echo.
Can you hear me?
here.
Okay.
echo here.
We got a little bit of an
We got
echo.
a little bit of an echo.
Do you want to get my headphones and microphone?
That might work.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Sound good.
So I'm just gonna. Should I end this right now, Marvin, or not?
No.
Okay.
And what right now? I just muted it.
All right.
So we'll give her a
Sounds
second, let her get plugged in. So
That works.
We ran into that here a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah.
oh, how's your week going? We're on second Mondays. Today was a good second Monday.
Yep. Yeah, it was. It's been busy. We're starting to fire up at work and starting to fire up here again. So it's always nice to see. And the weather's been cold in the morning. I know one morning it was 26 degrees up here. So one of the VPs at the company I work at, he's from Alaska. They live up in Anchorage. And last week we were talking about it, and he goes, yeah, it's 26 degrees at home and snowing. I was like, holy cow. Yeah, and he's excited about it. So I was like, well, all right. Might as well be. There's nothing we can do about it, right?
Well, I mean, we live where the air hurts our face.
Right. So
it's inevitable. I'm just glad that at least waited till the second week of October before we see the dreaded S word.
yeah, I hope so.
Well, I just hope it's not going to be a long winter, though I feel it's going to be. I told Sarah this spring it was probably going to be a long, crappy winter.
Yeah. Well, last year I think it snowed in September, so we're doing better already. So
yeah,
let's hope that we don't have too long a one. Hey, let's talk about the 20th. Well,
yeah,
we're going to be out in Devil's Lake, correct?
Yep, doing the show live.
Yes, so I'm looking forward to that. There's going to be people there that I have not met. I know the Sons of Liberty are going to be out there, and there's another group I do believe. And so, they invited us to come out and speak. So we'll be talking a little bit about property taxes, and we'll see where else it goes.
Pretty much whatever people want to talk about.
Yep. And we'll do a Q&A.
Do some chatting, get to see everybody. I mean, I haven't been up there for about a year, so it'll be nice to be back up in Devil's Lake.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, so and that'll be next week. Friday the 20th is when we'll be up there.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what we got. Still not working.
Is that me?
We got an echo somewhere.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm on location. It took me a second to find them. I'm like, where did I put my headphones?
No, that's no problem. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys.
You bet.
What a pleasure.
Well, it's quite a statement you put out with your press release. And yeah, I dropped that email. I'm like, I don't even know if she'll see this, because you know how it goes when you send to foundations. It's like, I don't know if this is going to get past a gatekeeper or go right to the person in charge. And then you email back and I'm like, oh, we got a show.
Yeah. Yeah. And, thanks for doing that, because I mean, I had no idea what would happen. I was announcing my news and solidarity, basically. And but I'm glad I did it. I mean, this we've had about a week since I've dropped it or so, and I've had a lot of time to think about everything. And I'm so glad people like you are giving me a voice and an opinion. And I still love to be out there trying to do the right thing, stand up for the right people, and keep family first.
Right. So before we get into all that, Kat, can you tell us, for our viewers who don't know, the name of your foundation, what you do, and we'll start with that part first.
Yeah. So I'm Kat Perkins. I am a singer-songwriter, originally from Southwest North Dakota, so a little tiny town called Scranton, North Dakota.
Yep.
I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've lived there for about 23 years. I'm gonna date myself now, but in 2015, I was on The Voice. In 2014, NBC's The Voice, and I went all the way to the end and was a semifinalist and got fourth place. And after that, basically, I promised myself to use my new voice, pun intended, to foster talent, especially talent that is in rural areas in my home state of North Dakota. I didn't have a lot of resources growing up and wanting to be a musician, and just by pure, geographical area. And what I wanted to do was give back. So I started the Rising Star Foundation. And what we do is we give scholarships to kids who want to continue their education in music. And that can be whether they go to college or whether they want to, go audition for something crazy like The Voice. We give kids money to get on planes and go audition for operas in Italy or conservatories in New York. But the big one, the third one, is I give scholarships to kids who want to go to music camp. And then what I did was formed and founded my own camp in the badlands of North Dakota, where my career started as a Burning Hills singer in Medora. And we've been kids together for the last, should be 8 years. This should be my 9th year, minus COVID. We still did it online in COVID, but and we get all talented kids in one spot. We teach them how to sing. We teach them how to write music. We teach them how to use a microphone. We teach them all about the industry. And we just basically are glad when we can get like-minded kids, talented kids from across the nation. Last year we had 9 states represented in camp, and get them all in one spot to perform and have a stage that they may never have had.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'll date myself. Years ago, I went through the International Music Camp for band.
Yay! I love that place.
It was a fun experience because the week that we had there was a cool summer like this year, and we had guys from Jamaica and like Equator Line running around with like down stuffed parkas. But I got the privilege of being there when the bagpipers were there. And if you ever get a chance to go through music camp when the bagpipers are there, every morning starts with bagpipes.
I've heard this. I would love to witness it in person. I never went. My sister went, but what I remember of my sister, she's older than me, but what I remember of her going to International Music Camp is her crying the whole week and wanting mom and dad to come and pick her up.
Oh, I had a blast.
Yeah, I think most do. I think most people do. I wish I would have gone.
So where were you having your camp out in Medora? Was it actually at the amphitheater, or where were you putting that on?
So they the TRMF, the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation, built a center called the Life Skills Center. It's like a $7 million facility in town that the Burning Hills singers rehearse in. It also has administrative office in it. It has a cafeteria in it for the employees, but it has a big rehearsal space. It has about 5 or 6 breakout rooms. A couple of them are actually soundproof, as though they're, rehearsal studios for singing, and some conference rooms. So we took advantage of that the first year that they had built that. And that was every day we used that for our daily activity. And then we rented rooms as dormitory rooms at the Elkhorn Quarters, which is across the street in Medora. And that's a hotel. And we would rent as many rooms as we needed to house those kids. And then the whole week accumulated on Friday or Saturday, however we structured the camp, as them performing at the amphitheater. In the beginning, we had the kids perform with me, and I would do a big concert in the afternoon. But in Western South Dakota, as you know, in the middle of July, it would be like 108 degrees. And I was like, it's just too hot. It's too hot to do. So what we then ended up doing was having the kids be the opening act to the Medora Musical. I would still perform with them and still do a couple songs within the set, but we'd put together like a half an hour performance and recital, and open up for the musical. So they got to experience, at least 1,500 people in the audience, if not more, and lighting and sound and, just the glory that amphitheater is.
Yeah. I love kind of the evolution of the amphitheater because I remember the old wood benches out there.
Yeah, so do I. I remember
a long time on wood benches, but it was always a great show, And
yeah, I mean, they're going to be on their 60th year this year, and my mother would say that I have been there every year since I was in the womb.
So yeah, how did you get started in the Medora Musical then? How old were you?
Yeah, I was one of the youngest ones, not the youngest, but one of the youngest ones to get in. So my junior year of high school, I went with my friends, and I could drive in North Dakota. I could drive since I was since a sixth grader, but
yeah. You can touch the pedals.
Yeah.
We got you.
So I took my friends and my cousin, and we all went. We loaded up my car. We all went for the night and watched the musical. And I remember it clearly, like it was yesterday. I remember going through the program, and I feel like there was maybe 1 or 2 people from North Dakota in the cast that year, which would have been like 1997 or 1998. And I thought to myself, like, how do you get to be up there? Like, how do you do that? I mean, there's got to be a way to audition and get into that show. And then the research began. And remember, the late 90s, it wasn't like it was like Google how to audition for the Medora Musical. So it took a second. And we found the company, which the company was Stage West Entertainment out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And they were accepting some video submissions that year. I remember setting up the camcorder and then filming my audition. Here's the fun.
Was it the big one with the big tapes?
I'm sure it was, or the high 8. I don't remember which one, but the really cool part is that we sent the video in, and we heard nothing, and that's just sometimes how things go, and nobody called and nobody said, we'd like to see her in person, or you made it, nothing,
Mm-hmm.
But I was in Bismarck, my senior year of high school. I'm in Bismarck for the Science Olympiad. Love my science. And my dad called my hotel room. So my dad was my music teacher my entire life. He taught in Scranton for 40 years. And so he was my music teacher. And he called my hotel room and he said, I have bad news and I have good news. And I was like, what? He said, I came home after school and your videotape never made it to Minneapolis. We had the wrong address on the envelope.
Oh boy.
He's like, so that's the bad news. He goes, but the great news is I'm willing to pack up the car right now, pick you up in Bismarck, and drive you through the night, Minneapolis, because the auditions were the next day. Like that Sunday. This was a Saturday. This was Sunday. And so the funny part is he had to like pick out my outfit. I'm like, Mom, home, can she help you pick out something to like bring me to wear? And she wasn't. So my dad had to pick out this outfit. He picks me up in Bismarck, we drive through the night. I get to audition at 8 a.m. the next morning in Minneapolis, and I made it. So what happened is that the rehearsal started in early May of 1999, which was my senior year. So I quit high school 2 weeks early, and I had 4.0. I didn't have to take any finals. I had to take like one final. And I packed my car, trekked out to Minneapolis, and started rehearsals. So flew home 2 weeks after rehearsals started. I flew back to North Dakota, turned my tassel, and moved up to Medora the next day. And then we had rehearsal out there for 2 weeks, and then we opened the show that year. So that was like right after
That's
school.
awesome.
And then I proceeded to do 5 summers out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was wild. It was cool.
So you're aging yourself. That's the time frames that you're giving. We're all the same age. So
Yeah.
I got you. So
yeah.
Yeah, her hair is holding up better than mine. I'm a little bit more.
yeah, at least she has some.
Yeah, all right, that's fair.
Wow, that's
that's quite a run. You don't see that very often from North Dakota kids. It's not that we don't try to get out and do big things. So no, that's really awesome.
It was really eye-opening. I think, in so many ways. I always wanted to be a singer. I started singing it when I was a little girl, but just wrapping my brain around that you could sing and get paid was just a wild notion, and like, oh my gosh, I'm really doing it. And the hard work that I've put in over the years was really paying off, I guess, in that moment. And the coolest part was that I got to meet all these fabulous people, or so many of them being my friends to this day, who all wanted to do exactly what I wanted to do. They were very like-minded, and I had never really been around that before in my little corner of the state. And so it was just cool to then somehow have camaraderie in the fact of my big dreams.
Yep. So what did you do when summer was over for those 5 seasons? What did you do during the winter time?
That was always the tricky part, right? If you wanted to come back, then you had to kind of fill those 9 months. But luckily enough, I met enough people that first summer to go ahead and feel comfortable and move to Minneapolis. And what I did is just start auditioning for shows. I was in a couple of national tours. Played an elf for Christmas. I pretty much kept on getting paid as an entertainer, and this was a bold move because I was gonna go to college. I was gonna go to Dickinson State University and become a teacher, and that's all debunked because I had the taste. I had the taste of being on that stage, getting paid, and I wanted to keep doing it. I didn't quite work full time as an entertainer at that point. I filled in some blanks with like administrative work, and worked at a hotel for a while. Just kind of doing what I could do to fill those 9 months, and then get back to the Medora job in every May.
So how did the voice tryout come into play?
Well, let's see, where should I start that? I guess, eventually in Minneapolis, I was brave enough to start my own band. And we called it Scarlet Haze. We actually had really fast track success, and it was really cool. It was my original band. I wrote songs. We recorded records. We got the weird and wild opportunity to open up for Bon Jovi.
Wow.
It was back in, that would have been 2005, I believe. And that just like made our career just skyrocket. And we then got an agent and a management company because of that. We had so much media attention from that. And all we did was win a battle of the bands. It was really lucky. It was like the most luck ever to be able to do that. We had only been together for like 11 months when we did that. But then we started to just play full time. And that's when my career changed to being a full-time musician. I didn't do much acting after that. I didn't go back to Medora because we actually got a record deal from that. So I was in the studio recording records and touring, and here's where it fits in. So at some point, I decided that it was going to be really important for me to try to get back in this moment. And we started to audition to perform for our troops in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a process. I mean, a lot of people wanted it. There's a long line. And we started auditioning in 2005 in that moment when we got the record deal. And finally in 2012, we got accepted. And while we were over there or on the flight back, I guess, from our first trip from the Middle East, we were riding. It was the best, most meaningful gigs I had ever experienced. Obviously, way outside of my comfort zone in the desert. We couldn't even tell our parents where we were because it was undisclosed locations. And on the way back, we had a layover in Amsterdam at the airport. There was a piano in the middle of nowhere that appeared somehow, and the boys, were like gathered around the piano, and my piano player was like, sing something. And I was like, no, I don't sing in the airport. Like, this is wild. And it was 6:30 in the morning. And we were all jet lagged. We had no idea who or where we were. And then I sang. And what happened is somebody filmed it on their phone, and it went up on the internet. It went viral. And the producers of The Voice saw that video because they apparently researched the internet to find talent wherever they want to find it. And I got an email through my YouTube channel, and they were like, we want you to get on a plane, come out to audition for The Voice. You can skip all the preliminary rounds. You just got to get on the plane in the next 2 weeks and come and audition for season 6. And I'll tell you what, I was this close to not doing that. I thought it was a joke. I honestly didn't really want to do television. I was happy in my life and didn't really want to, I don't know. It was
Disrupted.
a lot of doubt. Yeah. It was a lot of self-doubt of like, I loved the show. I was a huge fan. So I didn't want to like go out there and fail.
Yeah, no one does.
And luckily I got on the plane and I got a 3-chair turn on season 6 and chose Adam Levine as my coach. And I went all the way to the end, got 4th place. And my life was changed forever again.
That's awesome.
So after you got done with The Voice, back to Minneapolis, was that your first stop?
Yeah,
Foundation, or
yeah, I loved Los Angeles. Actually, what I did was I lived most of the year in Minneapolis and go spend the winter in Los Angeles I did that for like 4 years. But I knew that I wanted to still keep my base in Minneapolis because, I had friends there and support there and a lot of fans. Obviously, after that, there was a lot of fans from Minneapolis and, of course, North Dakota. And we just started brainstorming of like, what's next? Because I didn't necessarily, much to maybe some people's surprise, I didn't necessarily want to get back into a record deal. I wanted to kind of do it on my own, be an independent artist, use the springboard of a national platform like that to start my own business, which then led into that giving back portion again, which I've always had in my life, and starting that foundation and making kids a priority. In not only that, but with the help of the North Dakota legislature in 2015, 16, 17, 18, maybe even through 19, we traveled through the entire state of North Dakota, and I did student outreach at schools, and I went out and did this anti-bullying campaign, this Be Kind campaign, and this Follow Your Dreams campaign in, I swear to God, every single high school in North Dakota, and middle school and elementary. And
What
it
was
was
that
really
experience?
cool.
I was gonna say, what was that experience like? How was that? How were you? How were you met? I guess open arms. Like,
Oh
what was the
yeah,
atmosphere?
it was very electric. I think first and foremost to have, I mean, at that point, I had just come off the show, so there
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of kids and fans who had watched it, had seen it.
Yeah.
All these kids would think somebody's famous coming to the school, although I would tell them, no, I'm not. I'm only as famous as you want me to be. I'm also right here, and here's my email. But I think it was very much open arms, and honestly, probably one of the biggest reasons that my kids camp was so successful, because I was directly marketing to these kids and showing them showing them where I came from, telling the story of being a small town girl from nothing, and being able to find success and work hard and do what I love. And hey, we have a kids camp, come and learn all these tricks and trades. And if you have any voice at all, if you just want to sing, we will help you find your voice. We will help you foster any sort of talent you have inside of you, and come to camp. So it all went together very nicely, and it was all very much a happy accident. I just kept trying to do the next right thing, and trying to do this thing that felt good and felt like it fit my values and who I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be and what I wanted to do with this newfound success.
Gotcha.
Well, that's pretty awesome. Like from the contribution side, because like you look at the arts programs in North Dakota, they struggle, and this is coming from a kid that was in music, that was in art, that was in choir. Like, I get it. My oldest daughter again was in the arts too, so like that kind of path to success is awesome, and it's a very cool story for those kids that are in the small towns. But now we're to you've been traveling, you've had this foundation, you're at about 5-6 years. You said how many years did you do it? This would be number 8?
I started the camp in 2015, and then we skipped a year of COVID. We skipped getting together that year, but we did it online, but we didn't do the Badlands. So, I think this should be year 9, if my math is right.
So what brought you to stepping away now that we're all the way there?
So the big shocking news last week or the week before that, or we're probably looking at 10 days ago, was that Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation was pulling the rug from this family-owned company, Stage West Entertainment, who I had worked for 5 years, and also worked for beyond that in Minneapolis, not Medora related, and became really good friends with the family. Producer is Kurt Woolen. Kurt's daughter is one of my best friends. We met when I graduated high school, and we've been best friends ever since. She's in my band. And they've been producing the show. Kurt has been producing the show for 31 years. And all of a sudden, TRMF pulls the rug out. And I heard there was rumblings at the end of the summer, but I didn't quite understand what that meant. And I thought for sure, well, Kurt will be fine. He's been there for 3 decades. I'm sure everything's going to be just fine. And I kind of forgot about it until it happened. And I think I felt gut punched. I felt gobsmacked. I felt sad. And I went through like all the stages and was very angry that TRMF would do something like that. And not only that, but as you know, their press release explains that they hired a big box company out of New York called RWS Global. I love that Global's in their name. To produce this show. It's kind of confusing, so I want to take the time to let people and you guys know that TRMF runs the town. The Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation runs the town, and they're a nonprofit organization run on donations. They've been around forever.
Yep.
They hire third-party vendors like Stage West Entertainment and like me, who came in to do camp. So I wasn't directly employed by TRMF, but I was in partnership with them. We shared profits. State West Entertainment was also in partnership with them, and they shared profits in this moment. So for them to do that, not only to do it in the manner that they did, Kurt had very little warning. He had really no recourse to come in and say, listen, let me bid it out. If you guys are evaluating your third party vendors this year, let me put in a bid. Let me give it my best. If you want to change something, let me change it. I'm not done. I don't want to be done. And they wouldn't have it. And they're hiring this big box company. There's so many things that bother me about it, but it's so crazy to think that they would even think about hiring a big box company out of New York. RWS Global produces theme park shows, ships shows, these copy and paste variety shows across the nation and world. Hence the global part. Which you can see anywhere. You can go see any type of theme park show, cruise ship show, Broadway, anywhere. But that was what made Medora unique, is that it wasn't. And it was a family-owned business that produced this show. Kurt Wolin was in the Medora Musical in the 70s. He knew Harold Schaefer. I knew Harold Schaefer. And I guess we all knew that the vision for this town was never supposed to be big box. It was never supposed to move towards big corporate. It was never supposed to have a water park. It was it's not supposed to have a Hilton or anything like that. It was Medora. It's what made it unique. And so in light of that, I had to stand in solidarity with Kurt and my values. I mean, Kurt, of course, because I love him as my family, but my values are family first. My values are family over money. And my values go with family-owned and run companies like me, like my foundation. And I can't stand with TRMF in this moment and continue to work with them and help them make profit when they choose to do something like that, and the way that they chose to do it. It's just very un-North Dakota. It's very un-Medora. It's very shocking, and I think really not that rural.
Well, I know earlier this summer, before we got a chance to go out and see the musical, there was a lot of Facebook posts that were out there where people were saying that the show had gone woke, and they were replacing the rifles at the end with the guitars, and that the costumes were. But if he's been doing this for 30 years, like, I can understand trying things a little bit different, but I don't know. Like, by the time we went there, yes, there was the guitars for guns for Eye of the Tiger. It's Eye of the Tiger. There should be a million guitars on the stage.
Right, right.
But they still did the salute. They still had the prop rifles from when I was a kid. They still did like all that stuff. But if it was that far one way, I mean, once a show is rehearsed, it gets pretty hard to rewrite it after a couple weeks because folks are upset, right?
Right.
I mean, anything's possible.
I hate terminology like woke or conservative or far right or far left. It's just that was what was on my Facebook wall, you know.
I hear that. I saw it off, and a lot of those ideas too. And I guess I don't know because I wasn't a part of it this year, but
yeah,
a lot of those ideas come from the outside as well. So I don't know who made those decisions. Nobody will, but maybe if Kurt comes out and talks about it. But a lot of times those things come from members on the board or, the president of TRMF or the vice president, just to try something new and different. And I think it's important too to point out, and as you know, and you guys both know, that the show has been there for 59 years. And in the last 30, and let's say the last 40, before Kurt came in, they've always had kind of the same formula, I guess. It's not always, it's not the same show ever. It's each season is completely different every summer. Formula has been there. You know, you get the Yay North Dakota and Yay Teddy Roosevelt and Yay History of North Dakota and Yay Country Music and Yay God. You know, so you can't reinvent the wheel completely every year. And so, you know, I think they've done their best since I've ever seen it to keep those elements true to those elements and make it different every year. But you can imagine how hard that would be.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of scared to see what we get. You know, it's
I know. The thing is,
because
like, I
you
want to
look
be a
at
fly on the wall.
you look at Broadway, you look at the musicals. I mean, you can go Cats, you can go Rent, you can go Sweeney Todd. I mean, it's such a broad spectrum. Like, I'm really kind of nervous what's going to happen to a North Dakota tradition here.
And I'm really nervous that they won't really understand or take care of North Dakota history or take care of having local talent. Now I'm guessing that they have talked about that, and I hope they stay true to having some local talent continue to be in that show. I think it's what has been pretty important throughout the years. But I'm not sure that they will care. I've worked for big box companies. I've worked for many of them, and I guess the word copy and paste comes to mind a lot, just because there's a lot of shows that they produce that are the same. They know their formula, and they're going to bring that to Medora. I would love to be a fly on the wall. I don't necessarily want to come see it and spend money there right now. I'm too angry, but I'm curious to see what will happen next year and what it would look like. I'm sure it's going to be pretty shiny. That's what theme park companies do. They put on shiny shows.
Yeah.
I don't want shiny. I want to go play putt-putt up on the hill, and I want to go wander through the park for hours and then quick try and find something to eat to go get out to the show. You know, like, this was my little girl's first year going out to see the show, and depending on how things go this next year, I don't know if we're going to be going again. So
I know.
there's
It's hard.
that.
I'm curious how, you know, as much press as this has gotten throughout the last couple of weeks, if a lot of people probably care how the business is run behind the scenes. I'm sure the majority don't understand how the business is run behind the scenes. But the ones that do, I mean, as far as the backlash that I've seen, I know a lot of people have said not going back there and not wanting to go back there. I mean, I'm sure there's a price difference next year. There always is. That's not news to anyone, but you can imagine how expensive a New York company might be. So it could be.
Yeah, well,
it could be
it's not going to be
interesting.
cheap. Well, and just looking through the board here, I mean, you can see there's quite a few political who's that sit in here. I mean, their development team, their grant writer's a senator for North Dakota for District 35. I mean,
Right.
So these are people that are supposed to know North Dakota. Even their vice chair is a politically recognized name in North Dakota with Levi Ancrist. So, like,
interesting. I was in the show with Levi. Levi was a Burning Hills singer back when I was there.
Yeah.
And also voted against his own former boss.
So I mean, yeah, you look at some of the staff, you look at who's attached to the museum board, you see that overlap on the museum board of trustees too, and it's like, well, how big of a tie-in together is going to all this be, because they're busting their butts out there to put a national library in a national park that we'll probably have to pay twice to go see, because you have to pay your park entrance, and I bet you're gonna have to pay to go into Teddy's library too. But that's a topic for a different night.
Right.
So like, I'm nervous about the future for the musical. I really am.
Yeah,
I'm also
I am
curious
too.
what you're going to do with your camp. Are you going to keep it in North Dakota? Are you going to try and find a new location?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the old saying of when one door closes, 15 more open or whatever. I've had like 85 of them open. And I never really expected that, I guess, with my statement and my press release. But here we are, and it happened. I mean, I woke up 2 days later after that, and I had 15 options. And I quickly started to navigate that and sort of sit down and think, what is most important for me in this moment if I'm going to make this move, which kind of needs to happen fast as far as planning goes. But yeah, it's important for me to keep it in North Dakota. And I have some Minnesota options and rural Minnesota options. And maybe someday we expand and do it in several different places, across the nation.
Mhm.
But right now I want to keep it in North Dakota. Um, the emails, you guys, have been just so lovely, and all of these people like coming together saying, we want you to come to our town, and we have so many talented kids in our town, and all the way across the state. I've got like a list of top 3 or 4 right now, but funny enough, you brought it up. One of the first people that came to me was the International Music.
Really?
So I thought that'd be a really interesting twist on the situation, and maybe do it before their sessions open up in the latter part of July. Because the cool thing about my camp is that I don't have much competition like in the around the Midwest at all. There's not a lot of people that do rock camp or anything outside of band or choir. There's theater camp, and we delve into a little tiny bit to that, maybe giving some acting lessons and giving some dance lessons, but we're really about finding your own voice, whatever that means, really catering to songwriters and kids that want to sing whatever they want to sing. So the International Music Camp doesn't have that as part of their curriculum within their regular sessions. So there's maybe a couple options. I could counter approach them and say, maybe it should be part of the curriculum, or do something outside of that and just use that facility. You remember, they have a state-of-the-art commercial kitchen. They have dorms that fit like 250 kids. It's a beautiful part of our state that I'm not sure people have explored a lot. The Peace Gardens are just unreal and a completely different setting. Plus, we still have activity up there. We can still hike and be in nature and have the history that I like to teach about my own state, especially when I have kids come from out of state so they can learn something about where they are. So that's a big one on my list. There's Frostfire in Walhalla, North Dakota. There's a couple of places in Fargo, Grand Forks. I just got approached by a beautiful woman in Grand Forks that wants to, try it at UND, and all these options are just, coming alive. Also, Washburn. Washburn has the 4-H camp, better known as the Farmers Union, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a beautiful facility, and it's on the river. And they also already have a staff where there's like lifeguards. We could use the water, and that might be, a really great option for us. I'm excited. I'm really excited to just delve in. My sister and my father both work with me on this project, so we have been in cahoots for the last week and trying to make spreadsheets and keeping all these options in an organized manner. And we've got a bunch of meetings coming up, and I know that we're going to find the right place. We're going to find a beautiful place. It'll probably elevate what I'm doing. It'll probably take it to the next level. It'll probably be better than I ever thought it could be. And I can do it on my own terms and my own values.
That's pretty cool. Did you see the other piece of famous North Dakotan news this week?
What is it? Which one?
Josh Duhamel's moving back to North Dakota.
I saw that. I saw that he only wants to get closer so that it'll be easier for him to go to Vikings games.
Oh, is that what it is? Skull?
His wife is from there, from Fargo.
That's funny.
Well, because he's from like Esmond originally, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Right?
Yeah.
That's
I don't know for sure.
northwest, right?
Yeah. It's from somewhere up in that area.
Oh,
Yeah,
Esmond,
because
right down the road from Minot, Harvey, all that area up there. But all I know is
right.
they used to throw a heck of a demolition derby every summer.
Hmm. Yeah.
I remember as when I was growing up, you know, and I think right after maybe he married Fergie, or right before that, maybe, I don't know, but I always remember hearing the rumblings around Thanksgiving, like, oh, Josh is in Minot for Thanksgiving, and like, we used to play with my band all the time, so I'd be like, well, maybe he'll come to a show in Minot.
Yeah.
I saw him
Oh,
at the
sorry.
Perkins game a couple of weeks ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
So opportunities coming for the camp. You're not pulling out of North Dakota, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I have to stay true to that route. I mean, I know I don't live there anymore, but I really honestly just want to keep that as part of the number one. You know, let's keep trying it there, because there's just so many rural kids. There's so many underprivileged kids. There's so many talented kids. Oh, my cat's wanting to be in the podcast.
That's cool.
That are there, and I want to just give them opportunity. Where in Minneapolis or in Minnesota, there is a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of other camps that kids could go to. But yeah, I want to keep to the roots.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on kind of where the entertainment business is going with everything going on. You know, I mean, we talk about bringing in a global company and you know, the wokeism or however you want to put it. But I'm interested to know somebody of your stature being involved in the entertainment business. Where do you see it going in these times? I guess would be the
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's been interesting for myself as a singer and entertainer, because I have social media now. So
Mhm.
as much as it's great for promoting things and, you know, telling people about your shows and getting kids to camp, um, it's been interesting because we do have a voice,
Mhm.
and when you're somebody like me who really got an overnight giant platform to where there's 65,000 people listening at any given time to me.
Yep.
And when I want to be myself, or I want to speak out on human rights per se, that's where I've gotten a lot of backlash in the past couple of years. Um, People tend to want to tell you to shut up and sing.
Right.
As much as I get that notion, I understand that. I understand that you follow me mainly because I'm a singer and you want to find out about my music and my shows, but at the same time, I'm also human. So
Yep.
it's been wild to live that and try to balance the, you know, trying to use my voice for the right thing, as well as still being an artist and not wanting to just shut up and sing, because I'm also a person with opinions and trying to do the next right thing always, and always trying to give back and stand up for people that I love and stand up for people that I want to honor. But I don't know where that leads us. I think that it will automatically make artists or singers more than just singer. You're always going to have character around you because you live your life out loud, and you will have to, in order to sell records or to be in front of people, you have to live your life out loud.
Mhm.
So that changes the game. It changes everything. It's changed the corporate world as well, where you
Mhm.
know, you might have uh, drank a Mai Tai on on a video on your Instagram, and then your boss wants to fire you. But um, it's interesting to think about. But I think that's the biggest thing, is that as when I grew up, it was just Michael Jackson or Bruce Springsteen as a singer. You didn't necessarily know how he felt on certain topics, or how he, you know, maybe did even the good stuff. Like we didn't know where he was giving back for charity because he didn't talk about it. And you'd have to get a press interview. You'd have to be to the Today Show to talk about that, where now you can do it every day and you can live your life out loud. But
Well,
one more point. It is cool nowadays, on the good side of that, is that you can have more success in a way when you have a platform like that, or you can really let people know that you're on the side of whatever woke thing you want to be on, and people
Yeah.
do get to know that about you. And I think sometimes that's great, and I think that helps artists to be more successful because we get to know you.
Right.
well, even look at, let's use Robin Williams as an example. Imagine if he would have been able to speak out about his depression,
Oh my God.
or
That's such a
Chester,
great,
you know.
those are great examples, Marvin. I mean,
So
yeah.
like, I the thing that Shiloh and I have talked about a lot is, even if you don't agree with somebody, you should have a conversation, not just automatically resort to screaming at each other or yelling at each other. And you need to actually like talk things through. And there's times where Shiloh and I don't agree as much on things too. He's a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll, and my journey went from ranching to going to way too big of an art school to running kitchens to working in shops. So
That's amazing.
4-letter words are my favorite words.
Mhm.
And it's not because I'm rude or I'm crude. It's the vernacular that you grow up around. It's the vernacular that you grow up working with. But so like I can, we were talking about Minneapolis. I think that was a couple weeks ago. I went to MCAD in 1997 for animation and illustration. I was very familiar with the Uptown and Lynn Lake districts, stuff like that. When I was there, was as the gangs were going away, that entire district was going through this renaissance where it was family-owned businesses that were opening up. It was local mom and pop shops that were opening up all the way along that strip. It hadn't been converted yet. And so for me, when that burning was going on, that was hard for me, because when you're going to college there, I mean, MCAD's 10 blocks away from what they burned, something like that. It was hard for me because I've recognized going into those shops when I was in college, going to eat in those restaurants, going to see that stuff. So yeah, I was a little bit more vocal about why it was burning down, because I saw it go from having to roll up your windows and lock your doors when you cross certain streets to this was a neighborhood that you could walk downtown in and go grab some food, and you could find a record store and you could go do stuff, and it was local owners. And that part of it appealed to me because from North Dakota, because I would rather my money go to Shiloh's Boot Barn than to RC Western. So like what we've talked about, and we came to this agreement when we first started doing the show, we're not always going to agree.
Oh.
Like I will respectfully disagree with people on a lot of things, but and the long point of it is you should be able to have a conversation about it. And I think the big problem, and I'll get off my pedestal here in a minute, is we don't use words properly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you shotgun out a knee-jerk response, and once it's out there, you can't take it back.
That and text messaging and messaging. I mean, even on Facebook, let's say you disagree and you're writing something, it doesn't show any emotion. It doesn't, it doesn't show your tone. It doesn't show any of that. And that, in my opinion, escalates the situation all that much more. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Because there's no tone. This just came to my mind when you talked about that, since you've seen both sides of it, but where I get in a lot of arguments, I mean, I'm also trying always to have a conversation, just because I love hearing both sides of things. I was on debate team, for God's sakes. Like, I love it. I also always crave to be educated, and I crave learning new things. But in my sense, I grew up in Southwest North Dakota. So things were a lot different. I grew up with a farmer grandfather, a teacher father,
Mm-hmm.
mom who owned her own house cleaning business, um, in a town of 280 people at that time. I think it's about 150 now these days.
Yeah.
And then I moved to a town of 3 million, and it's run a lot differently. And there's a lot of different things that we need in a town of 3 million. And as far as like infrastructure and, I mean, just everything that you can possibly think of is completely different from how I grew up. And so my politics had to shift from where I grew up to where I lived now, and what do I need in the big city, and what do I think education looks like here, and who can I vote for to get better teachers in our system in the big city, and how do we get these underprivileged kids that aren't going to school anymore, how do we get them into school and all, right? It's just such a different way of thinking. So I've seen so many different sides of it. I'm very middle politically, I think, because of that, just because I grew up, very much more on the Republican side of it. But I see such a broad spectrum of why people think the way they do. And all I try to do is sometimes in these arguments online is say, listen, I just wish that you could expand your mind and think about other places than where you live. It's not just where you live, and it's not just where I live. There's a lot of different needs between rural places and metropolitan cities. So it's interesting, and I'm not saying that I've seen the whole world and I'm I'm the right one. It's just it's interesting because there's so many people that want to fight who haven't seen their sides of anything.
So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on. So how long have you been out there? 20 years now, you said?
Yeah, I moved in 1999.
Okay.
That first year of Medora. But,
Gotcha.
But I traveled a lot for those first 2 years. So yeah, 23 years, 25
So
years.
even in that amount of time, like my dad's been out there for, gosh, 30 some. He lives.
Really?
Yeah, he used to live in Newport. Now he's retired now. He lives in Farmington, just down the road. So when I go out
He's
there
down the
every
road
year,
from me.
yeah, okay. I go down there every year and I go to Mayo and different things. So anyway, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, is how has it's changed from the time that you moved out there in 99 to up until now, because obviously there's been a lot of things even in Minneapolis. I mean, pick your battle.
Yeah, I mean, wow, there's so many things that have changed. So when I first moved out there, which would have been right after I went to college, I lived on Inland Lake area. So it had already turned to a lot of those mom and pop shops in like the Calhoun Square area. There was record stores. Then quickly, like the Gap and Victoria's Secret, and there was a bunch of corporately owned stuff on, which would be Hennepin and Lake there.
Well,
So I saw the tail end of that just being very family owned into corporate into complete destruction, which is wild to think about. I never really thought about it until you brought it up, but that area, I mean, I actually won't even go down there. There's one music venue that's left down there, and it's brand new. It's called the Green Room, and it is amazing, and they get amazing performers there. A lot of talent from Minneapolis, a lot of funk nights that honor Prince and all these really cool things. But you don't want to park there ever. Like I never want to park there. There's just so many break-ins, and as a woman, there's a lot of carjacking right now that is absolutely terrifying to me, and it's rampant. Now, thinking back to when I first moved there in the downtown area, I got to see that transformation as well. So Hennepin, when I was there were still prostitutes, and there was a bus station, and it was like after hours, it was just wild, and crime was more in that, like not shootings kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got all cleaned up, and they, the bus station went away from that downtown. They built some hotels. They came in with a plan to, they restructured the road even down there, but restaurants came in and it was just bustling. And then Target Field came in, and it was just like, this place is really thriving. And on the music side of it, you could see live music 7 nights a week, any genre that you wanted, any night. Like, you could just throw the dice and go see it. And the shutdown happened, obviously, so then a lot of crime came in a different way downtown. So there's several shootings. Even if you're a Twins game, a lot of my friends will be like, "Hey, Kat, we're coming to the Twins game this weekend. Where should we stay?" And I'll be like, "Don't stay close to the stadium. It's bad. It's terrible. It's there's been a certain mission that has not been completed after COVID, and there's still boarded up restaurants, and there's still places that just never reopened, and it just caused a lot of chaos down there. So I've been through, the gamut through that city. I also made the choice to move to a suburb. I'm in Bloomington, Minnesota. So
Okay.
I lived in South Minneapolis for almost my entire time. I lived on 43rd in Chicago, which may not mean much to anyone, except for that is now
Yeah.
George Floyd Square. And I lived 2 blocks from that. So I made the choice to move a little bit farther south and become the suburban white girl.
That definitely was a interesting time out there, wasn't it? With George
It
Floyd.
was, I still think it's interesting, and it was, I just couldn't believe what was happening. I think one of my favorite quotes of my own, that sounded really egotistical. One of the weirdest things that came to light during that time was I eventually got my degree in cosmetology. So I didn't go become a teacher like the rest of my family.
Yeah.
Maybe someday I still will. But as I had my journey in Minneapolis and was doing theater and forming my own band, I decided to go to hair school because I thought the number one expense that I can cut out from my own life is hiring hair and makeup.
I could see that. Yeah.
I went to cosmetology school, and Minneapolis is like the home of what an establishment called Aveda. Aveda
Okay.
Institute is a big hair company, and it's worldwide, and it's they have the institute out there, so people come from all over the world to learn from the best of the best. I did not attend that one. I couldn't afford it. But I went to this little tiny school, and it took me 1,500 hours to get the degree, which is normally like a 9-month program. I think it took me 3 years, but who's counting? I was
Right.
working.
That's funny.
1,500 hours to be able to cut somebody's hair or shave a beard or paint nails, right? That's a lot. It's one of the highest amount of hours in the nation. Aveda has this high standard.
Mhm.
To become a policeman, to go on your first beat in Hennepin County where I live, it's 900 hours.
How many?
900.
900.
And you're carrying a gun, and you are upholding the law, and you are in 900. It's wild to me to think that it took so much longer for me to hold a scissor.
Yeah.
Or, and so I think there was a lot of speaking out against, like, maybe we should look at training out here. And this seems a little bit backwards, being a hairstylist out here, and or just having my degree. I never actually worked in the field, but it was a really crazy time, and I spent a lot of time not in Minneapolis during the riots and during COVID. I didn't need anywhere. My whole life stopped, so I went and stayed on a lake in a camper.
So I'm curious, before that time happened, was the transformation that you were talking about earlier, was that already going on, or did it kind of intensify with the George Floyd deal?
It completely intensified. In fact, it flipped back to, where maybe when I first moved there, because we were thriving. We were thriving in 2019 and 2020, and restaurants were thriving, and establishments were thriving. Crime was down, way down. We still had some patches, where we were always hearing about on the news. It was just completely different, and then it all changed very rapidly and for the worse, and hasn't quite recovered what I would have known it back in 2019.
Well, and we see that all over, though. I mean, how many small businesses around the state here have closed up because of COVID restrictions, where they just never open their doors again? I think in going into 20 from 20 to 21, it was like 45 or 50 businesses that already shuttered in North Dakota just from a couple months of restrictions. And so I mean, you see that here too. Just not on the level. Real quick, Pat, the coolest show I ever got to see out in Minneapolis, Chumbawamba at First Avenue.
Stop.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I just played First Avenue a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. But that was also
so fun to say.
25 years ago.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know how. And they've tried to close. I mean, there was so much grant writing, and they somehow have stayed open to this day. It's like one of, the most iconic venues there, and the Prince Purple Rain was filmed there, and the Prince connection with First Avenue, and they have come out of what seems to be, near death of closing, and they're doing it again. It's awesome because it's so cool it's so fun to go down. It's so fun to play there. It's so crazy to be on that stage and think of how many iconic people, even Chumbawamba, they're iconic.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was the height of their popularity. So that was like 97 going into 98. So when
I get knocked down.
Yeah. Mary Mary's my favorite one, though. Anyway.
Oh, it's good.
Anyway. So there is hope that you're going to be moving forward with us in North Dakota with your camp. So that's awesome. You're going to need to keep us posted where you're going to be setting that up.
I will. I hope that we can make a decision in the next month or so before Christmas, if not right after Christmas, just since it gets so busy at the point. I'm hoping to come back to you with some really great news of where it's going to be and how to, and start advertising so we can get kids and let everyone we're changing direction.
I'm surprised you didn't look towards Lake Chida. That's a little bit closer to your neck of the woods, isn't it?
Oh my God, Lake Chida! We always called it Tashida.
Tashida,
yeah. That's a good one. That's a great place. Here's eventually, I think it has to, I can't not think about it, but I feel like someday I will hopefully raise enough money and be successful enough to just build my own establishment. That'd be the goal.
Yeah.
That'd be solid.
I didn't catch it. Maybe you said it earlier on in the interview, but what are the age groups that these kids are? Is it all ages, or is there age limits on it, or?
We did an age limit for our overnight camp, so we've done ages 12 to 18, and then we split within that week that we spend with them and have them stay with us. We split those up into learning groups so that we don't necessarily always working with a 12-year-old if you're 18. We keep it a little bit separate until the end where they all have to collaborate and work together. But we think that's probably kind of the threshold of spending overnights away. But honestly, we've had some kids at 11, at 10. Even my niece came at 10. Well, she was my niece, but I always say, we put that as a guideline. You can't be over 18. That's, my insurance won't allow that. But as far as if somebody inquires if their child is 10 or 11, I always say, if you think they're ready, then we're ready. I would have been ready at that point. So bring it on.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I know, like, even being in the horse training deal and the horsemanship stuff, that my daughter, she started when she was 4, so she's
Nice.
7 now. So it's just, yeah, they're like sponges when they're that age, and try and bring them up and teach them the right ways and
I
what
think
to do.
ideally too in the future, I could still keep overnights from 12 to 18, but I think what would really be smart as if I can pull it together is to do like a day camp situation for
Mhm.
really young and
Right.
just not have it overnight, but just learn for a couple days and then put on a concert, after the
We can
third
have
day or whatever. But
chaperones if the parents would jump in, and yeah,
yeah,
that
and
would
they
be
can be
great.
involved in that, and that way you can keep funneling, the overnight camp and prep
Mhm.
them for that someday where they could look forward to something. But also there's just, if, as you know, there's just so much talent. Like I was singing at 4, I was singing at 5, 6,
Mhm.
like, and it would have been great to have something to, like a camp to go to, or just out training, I guess,
Yep.
because didn't really have that.
Well, I appreciate your time, Kat, and I know it's probably not all you were expecting. I wanted to kind of know some of your background, because I'll be honest with you, I don't really follow that stuff, and so I
Yeah, that's
know who you were, and I know, like, I grew up in Hazen, and I know you've um sang there before, and I live
yeah.
here in Ray, and I think you were here this summer. So
I was in Ray. It was like last minute too. We filled in for some band
yeah, and
because we were
so
already over in the area.
yeah, it's been
Uh,
interesting to know where you come from and
well,
your history.
thanks. And honestly, I really appreciate. I've been watching your episodes just to prep for this and get an
Mhm.
understanding about what you guys do, and it's been nice to hear about, news from the farm with you guys
Mhm.
too, because I don't get to hear stuff anymore. Um but I just appreciate the voice. I think in if I can close with this, it's like I think it's important to really honestly acknowledge what's happening out there in Medora and the foundation. And I'm not sure that, I really want them to just double think about what they're doing out there. And I know
Mhm.
I can't move the needle. I just wanted to speak out for what's right. And I'm not sure that they are keeping Harold Schaefer's vision alive
Harold
out
Schaefer's
there.
vision. Yeah.
They're moving more away from it all the time. And I do feel like that they put a lot of times put money over family, and nobody's brave enough to talk about it. Nobody wants to stand up to them. But you know what? It's just time. It's time. And I always promised myself that I would, if I saw something, I would say something. And I know it's an opinion. It's just an opinion,
Right.
um, but it also is really important. And so I really honestly appreciate you guys letting me come on here.
Oh, anytime. You're welcome anytime. I would actually like to um schedule a show sometime with you, and actually talk about, some of the political stuff as well, and just have a conversation, and we'll see where it goes. We may or may not agree on everything, and that's all right, but that's what we do with this show, is we're trying to spread the word, and get
Yeah.
everyone's views. So I'd definitely be interested in doing another show, kind of based on that. If you don't mind, we could, in the near future,
That would be
schedule
great,
that.
you guys.
Yeah,
Oh,
when you got time and you want to sit down, by all means, let's sit and talk because there's enough crazy stuff going on.
Right?
I'm really interested to honestly, Kat, what I'm interested in hearing is, because I hear it from, people that maybe aren't as close to the situation, but I would really like to talk about those times with the George Floyd deal, and
Yeah.
someone that was down there, and again, I don't know if we're going to agree or not, but we can agree to disagree. But I
Yeah.
definitely would like to have that conversation, because you lived down there. You were
Yeah.
in the thick of it, and I would like to, honestly,
Literally.
I'd like to hear from somebody that was. Does that
Yeah.
make
Oh my
sense?
gosh. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that with you guys. It was a wild ride, and it was wild to, well, be in the middle of it, but it was wild to see these other perspectives coming from different places
Mhm.
of what was actually happening. And also it was wild to see a lot of the misinformation that was happening in the media and happening where I'm like, that's not real. That's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we got to question everything anymore. It seems like anything you
Yeah.
see on the news, you have 10 things that say one thing, and then you got another 10 that say the other. Like,
Exactly.
my most interesting news of the day was hearing that RFK's decided to give the Democratic Party the bird and run as an independent.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. I woke up to that this morning. I just saw
Yeah.
that. I was like, whoa.
To hear
Yes.
to hear a Kennedy running as an independent.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yes.
wow.
I know. I was like, I also had to get up really early this morning, and I was like, was that real? Did I just see that, or am I still dreaming? And I had to like get out the door, but I was like, did that just happen?
No.
Crazy.
Well, yeah, we'll have to have one night where we just have a good conversation about
Yeah.
politics, because
Yeah.
this has been a great show. It's been fun to have you on.
It has. We appreciate your time, and
Well,
we'll be.
and like,
Absolutely.
I don't know if you caught, like, a couple weeks ago, we did kind of our faith week with Steve Briskup, and then we had Naomi Chafee on with Turning Point Faith. So, like, she was
Yes.
in Hollywood. She was doing acting. Well, she was in Atlanta, but she was
Sure.
acting for a living. So, I mean,
Yes.
she saw that side of the industry too. So it's nice to hear
Really
those
cool.
conversations, but at the same point, we're not afraid to talk about faith, and we're not afraid to talk about politics, and we're not afraid to
Yeah.
talk about who's sitting on a board of advisors, because
Yeah.
we know some of them are watching.
Yeah. 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 Well,
So
I appreciate that, and thank you so much for having that broad spectrum. That's really cool.
You bet. Well, if there's
All right.
anything that we can do for you as far as your foundation or anything, getting the word out on that, please let us know. We'd definitely like to help out. So
Great. That would be wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
you're
you
welcome.
bet. And we'll
Have a
be in
great
touch.
weekend.
You too. Take care.
You too. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Kat Perkins, everybody. Wow, that was a pretty good interview. I'm interested. I was interested in her, how she came up, because I've never heard the story. I don't pay attention to a lot of that stuff. It's just not my deal. And so at any rate, it was nice to hear kind of the steps of her steps that she's taken in her career, and good interview, I think. And I honestly, Marvin, I'm I'd like to have her back, because again, she's lived down there. I'd like to hear someone else's perspective of it down there. You know what I mean? Not
Oh,
that
yeah.
we're going to agree or anything. And I don't know that for sure, because
No.
also,
Well,
So-
and it's a shock to the system. Like,
Mhm.
I grew up ranching. I went to school at St. Mary's, but I moved to Minneapolis. I went for animation, illustration, and photography.
Yeah.
And to go from a farm where it's peaceful, quiet, other than coyotes and cows, to where I was living, because MCAD's right off the I-35, and it's literally a stone's throw away from where, at that point, it was the end of the Bloods and the Crips going at each other, and you had to be careful what you wore and what where you were walking and stuff. But you'd hear gunshots all night long at the college.
Mhm.
So, like, it's a very shocking experience to go through.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a neat journey that she's on, though. She was in that area, she's familiar with that area, like, so it'd be very interesting to hear what really she was seeing in Minneapolis at that point in time. Because we can all agree that the media has a tendency not to give us the whole truth, or they'll only give us the truth they think we need to see.
Well, and I was going to make make an example there, and probably should have done it before she left. But when President Trump at the time had his rally down there at the Target Center, my dad and I went. In fact, I think I posted a picture of the memory today on Facebook with we bought a Trump flag. And anyway, so the big story of the night is all the riots and stuff down there after we got out, because we actually drove to like the bus station, and we rode the city bus down there. And sure enough, I mean, we met some other people from Wisconsin that come for it, and we were talking, and of course we get off and we had some people yelling at us about using the public bus system and different things. And anyway, so we stand in line. I think we stood in line for 2.5 hours to get into the Target Center, and we come out. And I'll never forget it, because we come out and there was, obviously they had officers and different things in there making sure we were getting on the transportation and everything. And we didn't have a problem getting on and riding it back or anything. And there was a few protesters. There's probably, if there was 20 people down there when we come out, that would have been a lot. And I remember there's a few of them, and I don't know how these police officers did it, but they just stood there and they had their masks on and everything. And these guys were just right up in their face, just calling them pigs and different things like that. But anyway, we get home, and we just turned on the news just to see what was gonna come of this. And of course, they had these shots of where we came out of the building and all these people there. And they didn't, of course, it was all close up. It was the same groups of people that were there when we were there, not but a half hour ago. And they were just saying there's thousands of people down there protesting the Trump rally. And there wasn't even 100 people down there. And I was like, that was my first real.
That's where you want to pull up your phone and go click.
That was my first encounter with the media, meaning how bad the lies were. It's kind of like when the hurricanes are going, and then you got the guy in his shorts taking a picture, and then the trees. That's what it felt like, So, yeah, it's it was quite. I just had to shake my head, but no, it was an experience, that's for sure. So, but with that, we got a couple announcements, Marvin.
Yep.
Friday, we are not going to have a show Friday night. I am going to be on the road. I am teaching a horsemanship clinic down in the Dickinson area on Saturday, and I will be going down there on Friday night. So we have decided not to have the show and have Dr. Nadia and her husband Charles on Tuesday. And some of you guys who have been watching a while, when Luke and I first started, we had Dr. Nadia Watson Anthony on, and she started her inspiration. It's a pregnancy center in Williston. And so they've been, I've kept in touch with them, and they've actually turned into some friends, some good friends. We've, when we closed the daycare down and that, a lot of our stuff went to that, the women's pregnancy center. But it's kind of cool because it's not just for women, it's the whole family. They have counseling there for dads and children and women, and they do all kinds of different things. So we're going to have her and her husband Charles on Tuesday night. So, and then of course next week Friday we will be live from Devil's Lake. We're going to be doing the show down there after we speak at that event down there. So, am I forgetting anything, Marvin?
No, I know we have another couple shows that will be lining up after it, but yeah, it's probably a good week to take a short week considering we're going to be traveling next week.
Excuse me.
So.
Yep. So again, no show on Friday, but we will be back on Tuesday night. So with that, Marv, thanks for watching Here's the Deal, and we'll be back with you in a week from today.